Charles from Noble Gold, and he's got some exciting new information of what's going on in precious metals, what's going on in currencies, matter of fact, and what is going on with the stock market, because it's not having a good day today. Charles, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Charles, what's going on? Let me just take a peek right now live. The market's down 351 points. The Dow is down 351. NASDAQ's down 158. The S&P's down 43. What's going on, Charles?
Yeah, it's kind of what we talked about the last time. You have a vehicle here, the stock market, that has moved into ranges where it never really belonged. These are an artificial range, and it's been held there artificially. Now that we're beginning to see things unravel, you're going to see the market move to where it probably should be. And I know the last time we talked about it moving down in a pretty aggressive manner. I don't think that's today. I think this is just a warning sign. It's a little rumble in the market. But it's really a great reminder for all of us to remember that we have an artificially supported market here.
We do.
The quantitative easing really did a number on this market. So this is what we're seeing.
Now, talk to the viewers a little bit about quantitative easing, and I think that's controlled by the central bankers, if I'm right. But a lot of this has been going on. I mean, under the Obama administration, they printed money like it was monopoly, didn't they?
They did, and there was trillions of dollars. On the official books, it looks like there was about $4.6 trillion that were created out of nothing by the Federal Reserve. And it was all funneled through to the banks because of the bailout,
yep,
which owned the stock market firms. What happened in 2007 and 2008, we had the too big to fail scenario, and we all remember that. You know, we had Lehman Brothers, a well-respected brokerage firm for hundreds of years, disappeared, just completely out of business.
Yep.
And that scared the market. So what the government did, they said, we're going to bail you out. This is such a big scenario that it could affect the entire world. So after they bailed them out, they said, here's what we're going to do now. You're going to be owned by a bank. And then we can funnel all this quantitative easing funds through the bank, which had no incentive to loan that money out because the interest rate, they wouldn't have made any money on it. So it went all into the stock market through those firms that they owned. This is how we get this Dow, 20,000. And it's to the point where it happened for so long and they pushed it so hard that people wanted to believe that it belongs here. We're beginning to see that unravel.
So you think this is a correction going on, and I've been wondering. I've heard some analysts say this thing may correct itself all the way back down to 18,000. I mean, that would be huge if that happened. It could really send some shockwaves, I guess, in the economy. I mean, retail's struggling anyway. But I'm looking right now at today, and we're down now 371 points live. Bank of America's lost 5.9% today.
Yes.
Twitter's down 6.2%. Citigroup's down 3.9%. I can understand American Airlines maybe being down 4%, but they're dragging people everywhere. But I mean, so the big boys, JP Morgan's down 3.9%. So what's going on here? It's exactly what you said. Quantum easing, the banks being affected, aren't they?
Exactly. You have this suspension of belief now. We've all been nervous about it. You know, when we talk amongst ourselves, how high can it go? How's the economy growing? And that usually happens when people aren't feeling at ease, when you begin to have those conversations. Most people don't talk that much about their money. Okay, it's one of those things we kind of keep close to our chest. But when you see that conversation happening, it's because there's concern.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for years now. So we're beginning to see that suspension of belief take effect.
You know,
and they're going to blame it on this thing, that thing, the other thing. Trump did this, Trump did that. It's really about numbers. Retail is bad. GDP is bad. We're less than 2% growth on the GDP. That's not a very good number. In fact, we had Bernanke come out and say that growth at this point is going to be challenging, seeing as we have a unemployment number that's low. We can't really see much growth come from this economy. He said that just yesterday. So you take these scenarios and you look at it and you see it. The economy is not doing well. Without retail, there is no growth. So we have a scenario where these numbers have to pull back. And that means that your portfolio is going to take a hit.
Okay, so now I'm thinking this through, and I'm a very simple man here, but I look at it this way. Retail is dying because everyone's buying online. So Amazon's exploding. That's all distribution. Somebody has to make the product. And that's where the manufacturing, we moved it all out of this country, and that's part of the Trump doctrine, is to bring it all back. And we better, because retail's not going to be here. So if retail's not here, you got all these big buildings, these big malls. You can't turn them all into an antique shop. You know what I'm saying? So how do you get the money that's shifting from retail to .com or to online? And he said, I'm sitting there and I've lost $35,000 a day, and I don't know how I'm going to get it back. And should I sell? Should I sell and get out of there, or should I just wait now? I said, well, typically what goes up comes down, and what's down usually goes back up. I mean, I don't think you should panic yet, That's the problem I think people have in this unstable market. And I say it's still unstable because, sticks and stones, I understand. When real estate, let's talk about real estate. Because retail is dying and the money's shifting to online, what about the value of commercial property and even residential?
Great question. Well, I mean, we can look at it in two ways. How much is your house going to be worth if it's right next to one of those malls that are now vacant?
You're in trouble.
Probably not going to do too well.
No.
And what about the people who are living around those malls, who use those malls as jobs? In all the different aspects. I mean, maybe not just working in retail, but catering to retail.
Yeah.
So you see bumps there.
Yeah.
People who are not working and people who are not working to full potential don't buy expensive houses. They don't tend to go out and get real estate.
No. So, again, I'm back to this point. And I used to run a manufacturing plant, okay? So I was in 25 years. I was either for a while I was a sales rep for the manufacturing plant. For a while I was a plant manager. For a while I was the president of the company. I didn't own the company, but I was just working for him. And the guy owned like 7 companies, I think he had, or 7 factories. So I was always a manufacturing guy. I was around and I knew what was going on. I'm sitting here today thinking about this. I'm thinking retail's dying. Online's buying. Distribution companies should do great. But if we don't get we got to hurry and get the manufacturing here before the retail totally bottom falls, or there's going to be a ripple effect in this economy. You know what Walmart did to downtown America? It just closed down downtown. Well, guess what? Amazon's getting ready to close down Walmart. I mean, are we looking at a shift here?
We are. And the thing, and this may be a little speculation on my part, what do we think happens to the online price of things once retail's gone? Do you think it's still cheap, or do you know they have a captive market and then raise the prices?
It's going to go up. It's got to go up. Here we go, free enterprise, capital market. This is how it works, supply and demand. So we're back to gold again. We're back to gold again. I mean, I guess, again, don't throw all your eggs in that basket, but to your point, you need to have a little bit of diversity here. Certainly you might need some precious metals.
Absolutely. You take an interesting thing too, we just had, the Puerto Rico just filed bankruptcy. And this really does go to show that point, that there is an issue out there. $74 billion bankruptcy filed. That's the largest bankruptcy filed by a municipality in the United States history. And it's usually the beginning wave. When you see one, then there are others to follow. Mm-hmm. So we do some troubling times ahead.
So let's talk about it. So did you say $76 billion is what Puerto Rico bankrupt?
74. Yeah, $74 billion bankruptcy.
Okay, Venezuela's in trouble with this communist regime. You know that Italy, that Spain, that Greece, all of those guys are in trouble. They got that bailout from the EU, and then guess what? UK Brexit's out of the EU and leaving Germany holding the bag. So you're saying we're getting ready to see maybe some collapsing of countries who have to say, look, we can't pay it no more, guys. They owe these International Monetary Fund gazillions of dollars out there. So what happens if 5, 6, 7, 8 Zimbabwe's start happening? What happens on a world stage?
That's the tricky question. You see greater IMF involvement then, which means more of a corporate control over the world. Do we see all the economies get hit across the board? You know, and these are the questions that lead people to think: do we see a total economic reset, a currency reset? And it's very hard to say. You know, it's happened quite frequently when you have an economy get so damaged that they say, you know what, we're starting over. Let's create a new currency. Sorry for anyone who had the other things, but trade it in now and get, 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, it happens. We don't like to think about it, but it is a reality, and you can see it through history.
There's been about, and I'm not sure, you would be better at this, I think there's been around 6 global resets in the history of the world, and I'm not sure if that's the exact number. But what happens in a global reset? I mean, obviously they revalue all of the currencies in the world. So, so somebody like, someone like the dinar in Iraq, well, that can't go down. I mean, I would say it would probably go up a little bit. But something like the British pound, or the German franc, or the euro and the dollar, I just don't know, with Japanese yen, some of those would probably get readjusted. They're probably all a little bit inflated, and it would cause a... Of course, if everybody's gets adjusted, I guess then everybody's still a more fair playing field. How does that work? I mean, could there be a global reset, and who would make that decision, Charles?
That's a big question, and that's where people start to say, how much power does the IMF actually have? You know, when you look at them, they are the 4th largest holder of precious metals.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh, whoa! I got to write that down. The IMF is 4th in the world of precious. Doesn't Donald Trump own a lot of precious metals too? I mean, is he into that?
He does. I mean, he's been a believer in metals for quite some time, which is not unusual when you consider how, as before he was the president, how he invested a lot of real estate, a lot of tangible assets. So it makes sense that he was there with metals and has been there for quite some time. So, he understands to diversify, and you can see that in the way he invests his own personal money and his corporation, how they do business. So, that diversity is important there as well, and that those tangible assets really are there as that safe haven for him. But again, you look at those tangible assets, and like we said, the IMF, when you have metals, we'll use metals since we're talking about it, that tangible asset, if you see a currency reset, that means that those metals are becoming more valuable to you. It's going to take more of that worthless currency to buy those metals. And when they create a new currency, it's going to be based on its value to the old currency. So if you go, let's say you have a 10-to-1 reverse on currency. Your dollar is now worth 10 cents.
Right.
That 10 cents in new currency, it's going to take more than 10 times for the metals, because those metals are going to go up as a counterbalance. So you're going to see, instead of it being 10 cents, you're going to have to spend $2 for the same amount of gold before the reset.
Right. Everything gets devalued and revalued, and it's a shifting of how things, because I went to Jamaica, I was preaching in Jamaica, and I sat down and I ordered a cheeseburger and fries, which I probably should back off on that, but anyway. And they bring me a bill, and it was $95. I said, whoa, time out. Well, what I didn't know is Jamaica had a 100-to-1 ratio between the dollar, right. It's for $1 US is about $100 Jamaican. So I after I figured it out, I said, okay, it was really a $9 hamburger, but it's 900 there, or 90 there, something like that. I'm going to ask you a question. When you look at things, you take Donald Trump, for instance. He has, he's got a skyscraper everywhere, but he's got a lot of money tied up also in precious metals and gold, making sure that he's got a backup plan. But when we talk about a reset, a global reset, a currency reset, when we look at the Bible, it keeps talking about you can't buy or sell. The mark of the beast will come down the road. There has to be a one world currency. Is it possible that as these nations start filing bankruptcy, or as some nations do real good, and as everything is shaking out, I mean, to do a global reset, is it just put everybody under one currency? Could that be the plan of some of the people working in the IMF and the central bankers?
Could be. Even if we take, and let's, for those outside of the believer realm like we are, it would make things easier to control economic-wise if you had one currency. As believers, we know what's coming. We know that will eventually happen, and we know what a horrific thing that means.
Right.
But for those who don't believe, it's going to make perfect sense for them.
Oh.
And ultimately, if you think about it, it has to make perfect sense for people to want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if people knew that this was going to create the hard times that are yet to come, when you see that one world currency and you see the tribulation begin to happen, they would fight more. You would have more people resist. But things have to be bad for that to look like a good option. So that's what people forget.
Yeah.
People aren't doing this willingly because everything's great. They're doing it because things are so bad, it seems like the only hope they have, because they've misplaced their hope.
That is the greatest analogy of why people will do this, is because they'll see this as the salvation. They'll see this as the only option left. And somebody will be able to sell that to the world, that this is the move we have to all make to save mankind, or to pull ourselves out of this jam. And it'll be easier to convince people to do this. And especially, Charles, basically, while the non-believer in the Bible are being slowly conditioned to trust more in man and less in God, it'll be easier to convince them because of their fear of losing what they have or how they sustain themselves. So yeah, I mean, I could see why this would be moving in that direction. And nobody's going to do that unless it's the last resort. It's basically like we have no other choice. So you're saying at some point in time there will be adjustments, and I don't know where that's at out there. But in the meantime, again, diversify. If you got some gold, and let me ask you a question. If people want to buy gold, if they come to you to buy gold, can they have the gold sent to them, or can they just buy the gold and it's sitting somewhere else? How does that play out for folks?
Great question. You know, there's a couple ways you buy gold. One is you have some money sitting around and you want to buy it. With that, we can deliver it to you. You can store it yourself. We do have storage options for those people who don't want it in their home. So yes, you can have it delivered right to your door, and we handle that for you. If you're moving funds in an IRA or an old 401k, those have to be stored for you, or else it's considered a distribution. There's tax consequences.
Wow.
But we also handle the storage as well. We have some of the best storage in the United States. We have three options. We have the depository in Delaware. We have the Canadian depository just outside the United States. And we are also the first and only investment firm for precious metals that has storage in Texas.
You know, so you got a person that's they got their 401k or an IRA. They're retiring, or maybe they're not retiring. Okay, they just want to put their money in the gold. They can go through your company, roll it into gold. Of course, it has to stay in storage, or it becomes a dividend, it becomes a distribution. Then they have to pay the tax. If they wait till after they're 59, I think it is, then they can not get hit with the penalty. But anytime they take the gold personally and receive it, even if they're putting it in a bank vault somewhere in a safety deposit box or something, they have to then pay tax on that, I take it.
Yeah, if it's coming out of the IRA, yes. If it's a retirement vehicle, you would have to pay income tax. Yeah. But that's just like anything in the IRA, whether it was stocks or whatever. If you remove it from the IRA, it becomes income.
So again, people have to think these things out. Where do they want to do? What do they want to do? And again, folks, I will say to you, that's where prayer is so important. Where, yes, as you know, Charles, you have to have faith in the Lord. You have to trust the Lord. And that's why companies like yours, Christian-owned, a good Christian man involved, giving people good advice, but leaving it up to the consumer. I know that's what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can only show you options. They're your options to choose, and obviously, you want to take your time. You want to pray about it. You want to think about it. That is the most important thing you can do for everything, not just for what we're talking about right now, your retirement or precious metals. I think, time spent on your knees is the best time that you can spend when you're making any kind of a decision in life.
Wow.
So, prayer is so important. You find out what's available, you pray about it, and you make a decision. That's really how the best decisions you make in your life are really established. If you look back at all the great ones, they probably involve some form of that combination right there.
And don't panic. Isn't that another one?
Right.
Don't panic.
There is no need to panic. God is in control, first and foremost.
So calm down, relax, get a cup of coffee. Are you serious? Don't panic. If the market, like today, down 372 points, I think it closed it down 372 in the Dow, NASDAQ down 158, the S&P 43. Good day to be sitting here interviewing you so we can get some understanding. Hey, stock market might not be the only game in town or the best game in town. Certainly, though, you got to look at gold, you got to look at silver, and you got to diversify and think these things all the way out, and pray about it. Let God direct your path. There's a scripture that says that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, and He'll direct your path. And
Amen.
Noble Gold. This is Charles from Noble Gold. And so, your final. What would be your final advice today to people that are at retirement age? What would you give them as advice?
My best advice, and this goes for anyone along the spectrum, call us and see what options you have. Because that's the most important thing. See what your options really are, and then you can make a decision. But it all starts with a phone call.
And that phone number you wanted to call, Charles?
888-596-7916.
There you go, folks. Also, just click on if you look at the description right there on this video, you'll see right at the very start of the description, there's a link. Click it. It takes you straight there, and you get a hold of Charles right away. You can get your information that you need to know, where we're at in the market, what's going on with gold. Should you diversify? How much should you? You guys work with people. You take a look at their portfolio. You talk to them. You find out where they're at in life, don't you, to kind of give them advice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We take our time, make sure that the information's right for them. There will be an occasion where we say, maybe metals aren't right for you. It happens, and we're not afraid to say that.
That's the integrity.
The right thing isn't always the easy thing.
That's the integrity part, Charles. That's what we love about you. That's the integrity, is to be able to say to someone, I think you shouldn't do that, maybe not, and here's why, and to help folks who don't know what to do. I mean, look, things are changing. We just talked about retail dying and manufacturing needing to get here. So, Trump, can I ask you a question? Trump tax plan. I know the media's beating him up over the Russians and all this. This is all smoke and mirrors to try to derail, really, his objective, which is to change it and to help us get out of the Obamacare disaster that's about to happen. And people don't realize this. It's going to implode. Now, maybe not the plan they passed in the House is the right one. The Senate needs to tweak it, but we got to do with something with it. But I think even bigger than that is we have to look at what's going on with the taxes. If he implements his tax plan, it's really going to help a lot of folks. That dropping that thing from 39 to 15, especially for S corps, and I mean, that's
absolutely.
And
it's going to create more jobs. It's going to create extra income, and people, especially Americans, if we have extra income, we like to buy things.
Sure.
So it's going to spur the economy as well. It just doesn't happen overnight. That's the thing. It takes a while, but it does work. It's time proven.
So his tax plan is actually a good plan for the economy. I think cutting taxes and bringing the manufacturing base as much as we can back to America to offset a dying retail base, I think is a good plan. I have to be honest with you. I think he's got a good plan, but he's going to have to have some folks go along with him, and it looks like the swamp is getting slimier by the day. I mean, they're struggling over there, guys. They're fighting, aren't they, Charles?
Well, let's be honest. Draining the swamp is not that simple. The swamp does fight back.
There's some crocodiles in there, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
Charles, from Noble Gold, we're so glad you're with us today. It's been a very entertaining, very informative discussion, and we truly appreciate everything you do. And we want to thank you for being with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless as well.